This morning I will talk about perhaps a new topic for you, that's organic rabbit farming. It's a bit new also in our institute. For those people that do not know me, I belong to a division, INRA. The division is animal physiology. You see here. And I belong to a lab. My lab is called CNFIS, is many geneticians and physiologists and nutritionists. And my team here, it's a team that look on sustainable breeding systems. And in this team, we develop studies on organic rabbit farming. So, I will present my talk in 5 parts, more or less. And first, the context. Also, some minutes, not be afraid, on history and basics on organic rabbit farming. Of course, the regulations. Regulation is very important in Europe. There are labeling for the organic products. And after we will see some examples with photography and so on, and some conclusions. So, move on. Organic production in France and Europe is actually developing more and more. For example, in France, I have some figure here. Organic agriculture is almost 10% of the whole productions. You see, it represents 8% of the farms, and means that there are 4,000 or 5,000 farmers implicated in organic rabbit farming, including cereals, vegetable products, and so on. And for breeding, for example, you see that milk, organic milk from cows, represents actually more or less 5-6% of the whole productions, and is it increasing a lot. Organic pig farming also is increasing. Organic egg production, for example, that means more than 1,500 farms. And the production is moving a lot. You see here the trend among the year. This of the French organic food productions. But this trend is more or less the same in Germany, more or less the same in England, and so on. And you see here some figures about the number of farms implicated in such organic productions. That means more or less actually 35,000 farms implicated in organic productions. So, just to say that organic production is not little things. It's increasing and more and more. What about rabbit productions in France? You see that the standard rabbit productions is more or less 500 millions of euro as a market, and the main area of production is the west of France. Okay, that means more or less 48-50 million eggs produced per year. But organic rabbit farming is very few at this moment, but is increasing. Actually, we have more or less 20,000 eggs produced per year for a market amount of 400,000 euro. So it's only 1% perhaps of the whole productions, but this production is moving. And the context is this one, actually, in France, but also I think so could be the same in other countries in Europe, maybe Italy and so on. With standard productions, you see standard production here, organic rabbit production here. Tendency, actually, the number of farms for rabbit, for standard production is reducing. Actually, we have about 1,000 standard rabbit production farms, with one or more or less 500 females producing per farm. And the rabbit meat consumption, what is the most important, the rabbit meat consumption is reducing for standard products. So the production is reducing year after year. And the market, actually, that is more offer than demand. For organic products, there is a demand. And the demand is higher than the offer. The rabbit meat consumption is increasing. We have the number of farms which is very low, so the offer is not sufficient at this moment, and people are looking for this type of products in France, at least. So the market is very positive for these farmers at this moment. There are massive improvements for conventional systems, but in contrast, very few studies for organic producers. Keep out of your mind that producing organic rabbits is like in the past my grandfather or my grandmother and so on. No. It's very technical production in fact, and we need to be very clever to succeed in such productions. You will see. Let me 1 minute about history. One slide. You know probably that domestication of the rabbits is very recent compared to cow, sheep and so on. Very recent because it starts middle 15th century only with breeding in hutch. And you will see, for example, this is probably the first encyclopedia in agriculture that will be written in French, Old French, and they already Olivier de Serres already speak about rabbit farming and the possibility to have postpartum mating for the doe. Okay, at this moment already they know that it's possible to mate already at partum. Yes, but the production is developing mainly in the 19th centuries with many new breeds like this one, but many others. And in the 19th, you are one guy, Mr. Moran, that developed a new systems compared to the hutches, which is a movable cage, the old system, to exploit the pasture, and because the rabbit is first an herbivore. Okay. Foundation. The foundation of organic rabbit farming probably is due to Mr. Termo. Mr. Termo developed a farm in the 1990 in France, in the west of France. He is now retired. He retired 10 years ago, more or less. And he gave really the basis of the regulations for organic rabbit farming in France, but also influenced largely the regulation in Europe. It was probably the first farm that give money, professional farm, you see, not for pleasure or for sport, for these organic productions. And he has developed a system mainly on movable cages. You see these cages every day they are moved on a pasture. It is quite similar to the cages of Moran, the whole one in the 19th. Also, you can have other systems like this one. That is a movable paddock plus a shelter. Okay, this is a general view at spring. There are many grass. In autumn, it's not the same. And if you compare the two systems, actually we have in standard conditions, battery breeding system, very intensive, okay, with pelleted feed. This is the mainstream system in France and in Europe, of course. This is indoor, okay, and many prophylaxis with antibiotics, okay. And in return, in great contrast, great difference, organic farming is outdoor. They oblige for the link to the soil, okay. This system is emerging, is very minor but emerging. And for health treatments, no chemicals are authorized unless you lose your labeling. You see here the labeling. This is a label for organic product in Europe. When you label products, you have that. It's okay. You are certified. So very different systems. Sorry, there is a labeling which is not in this place. In Europe, for organic rabbit farming, you have one main basic regulation, and this is regulation what was elaborated in 2008, so 10 years ago. But also, each member state of the Europe may have a specific regulation for every kind of productions. And France have a specific regulation for rabbit production. This regulation was adopted in 2010, and it is under the control of the Ministry of Agriculture. And we have a specific labeling for organic product in France. This is this one. For every kind of product. But presently, the regulations are not the same exactly for organic rabbit farming in Europe. I put here a table with some comparisons. For example, in France, we don't ask for a specific breed, while, for example, in Italy, they advise for de Bourgogne, Blanc de Gien, and so on, they oblige to have specific breeds. In France, for example, we authorize movable cages, okay? But in other countries, this is not specified. In NS is not specified. So, according, for example, we also agree for paddock and pasture in France. For others, for example, in Austria, it's possible to cover all the area with grass, with pasture. We also authorize partly outdoor breeding with area for exercise. For some others, it's not specified or not really. What is forbidden? Forbidden is breeding in hutch with a wire-net floor, for example, a slated floor. It's not possible in France, not possible in Italy, not possible in Spain. May be possible in Austria, and in other countries like Germany it's not specified at all. In Germany this is a private standard, natural land. It is not under the government of Germany. It's a private standard. You have many other regulations to have the labeling for organic rabbit farming. For the density, here is specified in some countries, not in others. For example, also the pasture load is specified in France, in Italy too. The feeding is specified. For example, feeding, we need to have at least in France 60% of forages, raw forages, grass, hay, or maybe if you have some pellets, lucerne in the pellets. For example, we specify also the age as slaughter. Age as slaughter is very important. At least 100 days, compared to standard system is more or less 70 days. Okay. But in some countries it's not specified at all. Okay. Presently, these regulations are under discussions in Europe because Europe tried to harmonize all regulation for all the member states in Europe. So this will be moved, maybe only one regulation in some years, 1 or 2 years, only one. Some examples of rabbit organic farms in France. We will see some performances after, and you will discover that it's very diversified systems, very different in fact. But already, when we look at the whole cycle, you have gestations is the same. Lactation is not exactly the same in this organic system, because you see the weaning. The weaning in a standard system occur more or less at 5 weeks old, sometimes earlier, some 4 weeks. But here, in organic farming, the weaning is more or less not before 40 days, more or less, more frequently 50 days, sometimes 60 days, depending on the farmers, on also the weather conditions, because we are outdoor. For the fattening, depending on the farmers too, and the weight of the fatteners of the rabbits, but at least in France it's minimum 100 days. Okay. And when we choose for the farmer, when he choose, if he start and choose a breed, what is his aim? The aim is to have in reproduction 4 or 5 liters, 4 liters per year, and not many rabbits per liter. The aim is to try to wean 7 or 8 young rabbits per liter. And the growth, they look to a growth that is moderate. 25 grams per day is sufficient to reach the market weight at 100 days. Remember, you cannot sell a rabbit under organic regulation before 100 days. So the aim is to reach this weight at 100 days only. And one of the aims is also to reduce the income cost, feeds, prophylaxis, the renewal of the livestock. It's very important to reduce this cost. So the system is adapted to these aims. It's quite different of the standard system. I will show some example. You will see here one farm that choose to have maternity unit with a doe, the gestating and lactating does, in individual paddock, individual enclosure. Okay, you understand? Or some others have also movable cages. Depending on the farm, they choose the systems. For fattening, also you can have paddocks like that. Okay, and the grazing, you organize the grazing with a rotation, and you have a minimum of 1 hectare per 20 dozen liters, and you are obliged to respect a 2 months delay before to reuse the same paddock. Okay, this delay is particularly important to reduce coccidiosis infections. More or less, for a farm, for a farm with organic rabbits, one full-time employee, one full-time persons, can manage more or less 80 does, and he manages also, he should have, he must have also 4 to 5 hectares of grass, of pasture, and also he should have also 4 to 5 hectares to produce grains, to produce wheat, to produce barley, to produce oat, pea, and so on. so that it can have more or less 100% autonomy to feed the animal. Compared to the standard system, you see one person, 80 doe. In standard system, one person, 500, 600, or 800 doe. So it more or less 10 times lower in terms of number of animals. Density, livestock density also is regulated. You see what you should have in France less than 100 doe per hectare and per year, or 600 growing rabbits weaned. Let me go to some technical results. This is some little results from one inquiry on 5 farms. You see first that the buying price of an adult rabbit is about 15 to 20 euro. You see the matting is every 63 days, not every 42 for the standard systems. The number of week per parturition is 5 to 6, is quite lower than that we have in standard one. So the number of sold rabbits per female per year is quite moderate. It's about 20 compared to 50, 55 in standard rabbit productions. Okay. Mortality, birth to slaughter, could be high, sometimes 40 to 50% depending on the farm. The weaning, you see, the weaning is very late, 50 days more or less, but the weight at weaning is about 1 kilo. One of the aims is to wean rabbits that are sufficiently heavy, at least 1 kilo, to move easily in a paddock and to avoid any problems, for example, predations problems or something like that. And you see the price to sell a meat rabbit is quite higher than the standard price. It's about 14 euro per kilo, and the farmer produce, slaughter, and sell itself. So there are no intermediates. Okay. The price of the rabbit meat in France is half lower in standard conditions. Okay. This explains that people with 80 does correctly managed could have a full time and a full salary of its production if you produce more or less 1,500 rabbits at 20 euros, so that means 30,000 euros per year. Another performances that are much more controlled as the previous one, because we at INRA, with contribution also with the organic institute, technical institute. There is an organic technical institute in France that contributes to this study with us, and we collect data from 8 farms with the software and over 2 years of productions. And you see here that you see sometimes that I will drive your attention about that. For example, sometimes the part to part interval should be very high, 100 days, much more, and you can see also the variability here. Some people have a part to part interval reaching 200 days sometimes because they forget to put the female to mating. They need more rationality in the management of the farm, so that the number of weaning per female and per liter is sometimes very low. Only 2 wean, 1 to 2 wean per year and per female, so it's not so high. The number of wean per parturition, it's correct, 6, you see here, but respect to a year is not so high. One female produces 10 to 15 youngs weaned, so it's not so high. It could be largely improved, I think, largely improved. Just look at a farm, one farm, which is, this farm was probably one of the oldest one and still running at this moment. And it is an example because many farms are organized like that. For example, you have 2 people in this farm, 1 people looking at the rabbits and 1 people looking at production of calves. All the farm is under organic regulation, you see. And so this farm is installed on 13 hectares. They have 70 females for rabbits, but also some cows and some ewes. Okay, and they produce, you see, with these 70 does, more or less 1,300 rabbits per year, and that means that the money income from rabbits is more or less 20,000 euro per year, and the benefits is estimated to 13 euro per year. So that means for each month, more or less 1,000 euro only with the rabbit productions. So it's okay for us because these farmers, this is a couple, don't look for a very high revenue. They look for to be happy with their productions and with their job. Okay, they don't look to have intensive many animals and so, but to have sufficiently, and they say directly at farm, more or less. Okay, those their system is adapted to their aim. Housing is movable cages for outdoors and paddock for growing rabbits. The feeding is a pasture, cultivated pasture with legumes and grass. Okay, they make a rationale on the grass production. No? They produce also hay, and sometimes they buy some organic pelleted feed, particularly for late eating dough, and also at the weaning moment. Some examples with some photo. You see here, this cage was built by the farmers. Each farmer built his material, his housing material himself. Okay, and they choose some breed. For example, this farmer choose Papillon breed, this one, and he choose also Argenté de Champagne. At work, every day, you have to move the cages, every day. And you have to give water. Water is a hard job also to pour the water for each cage. You will see the movable cages on a field. It was at spring with many, the height of the pasture is very high. It is a mixture of legumes, clover, lucerne, and also beans, fava beans. Fattening cages, you see that he put some hay on the top of the cages. Each cages has shelter to provide, and inside the shelter you can put nest or you can put pelleted feed and so on. Some if people believe that the rabbit is not an herbivore, look after and before the cages pass, you see the cages pass, you see they graze a lot. Rabbit graze a lot. In winter, they give also some beetroots, of course. And they mix according to the, for example, it was for elected indoor. He gives organic pelleted feed, which is very expensive, this organic pelleted feeds. But he gives also a mixture of grain with pea, with barley and oat. And also you have inside the shelter the hay, okay, that is made on the farm. Another example with a hay tray and feeder for grains. Okay, this is a new cages. He developed a new cage with the separations, movable separations inside the shelter. And you see that the doe is able to make a nest inside the hay, the nest with little with babies, okay, young rabbits. Even in winter, the rabbit doe is able to perform a very comfortable nest. Okay. Another one. This one also was a producer. And there are two people at this farm. One guy for the rabbit production, and one guy for milk production, organic one. Okay. It was the west of France. Another farm. Each farm has its own systems. This woman, this is a woman what manages farm. She has 35 doors in individual paddock systems with only 8 square meters per female. She also has 50 sheep. Why 50? Because over 49 you have a specific subventions from the government. So she has 50. For rabbits, not any subventions, not any help from public services. Okay. But you have help with cow, you have help with sheep, depending on the area, the pasturing system and so on. This photo was done in winter, so the grazing, the pasture, the grass is very low, you see. If you choose to have paddock, you should electrify the enclosure up at the bottom too, to preserve from predations the dogs, cats, foxes and so on. And it's very important to protect the rabbit. The rabbit is predated also by birds. You have to look at this one. In this farm, she chose to have one hutch, shelter, a hutch, that is possible to open on one paddock, alternatively to another one which is in parallel. Okay, one. This part, and inside the shelter, she managed for feeding and for the nest, and she prepared herself a mix of grains. Okay, you see here the photography with pea, with barley. She doesn't buy any pellet, any. And in the winter, she gives one beet, for example, one beet for a female for 3 days, beetroot. This is large paddock for fattening rabbits with some shelter. And also the shelter is for predations by some birds, okay, some rapists that look at the young rabbits particularly. If you wean the rabbits a bit early, if you don't run so much quickly, it could be predated by birds. So you have to wean later, sometimes only at 60 days, to reach weight and have a rabbit that could move quickly if possible. It is a shelter for the paddock for fattening rabbits. It was in winter, this visit was in winter, and she has several paddocks and several lunches like that. Other people choose it is a calf's room, I don't know exactly the term, in plastic, that open on a paddock also. You see, for example, this pasture paddock. Okay. I will finish with this the largest farm with organic rabbit production. This is a couple of a man and a woman, and they organize a system, and they produce only rabbit. They don't have any other productions. They began 3 years ago with, and they built about 100 movable cages for the dough. As it's a system with movable cages for maternity and paddocks for fattening. We'll see. And they are very clever people because they built a specific model of cages, and they choose to have a breed which is from a genetic company which is called Ecole. It's a French hybrid lines, New Zealand and Californians cross. And they organize the reproduction with families. They have for the rabbits in one family 40 females and 2 males. And they organize the rotations of the males among the different families, you see, to avoid any consanguinity. And they organize their work also. You see the man here, the man with a small electrical car, with all the materials on the car, the feed, the tools to clean, and so on. Within 2 hours, maybe 3 sometimes, he is able to visit all the 100 cages. So they adopted a semi-intensive reproduction rate. Their aim is to reach an interval part to part of 50 days. So not so far from the standard rabbit productions, with a winning age at 50 days. Only 50 days. But in their paddock, you see some photo of the paddock. They protected the paddock even on the top with a wire net to not have any predation from the birds. Okay, and they have 4 paddock like that with 700 square meter each, and they give some feed or water in these paddocks. For the feeding, there is a pasture. They also buy some grains because they don't have enough surface to produce. And they buy also some hay. In fact, it is a soft pellet of hay. You see this pellet? It is not a hard pellet, it is a soft one. It is made of hay only. And the grain mixture, they buy some of this grain mixture, which is barley, triticale, pea, and field beans also. And they give oat to lactating females. But to organize, to finish the production, they invest a lot in a slaughter house, slaughter workshop at farm. It's brand new. This slaughterhouse follows the European regulations. It's very clean, it's perfectly organized. They hope to have the money come back about within 8 years. They slaughtered more or less 200 rabbits per week, no, per month, sorry. They slaughter 1 day per week, the Monday, and the Tuesday they are packaging, delivering the rabbits. And you see the organization is this is one of the most intensive farm, and they are very happy with this pollution at this moment. But, we will see if in the future they still produce or not. The longevity of the farm is one main indicator. Other farms choose also to have pastured rabbit, but without organic labeling, because organic labeling you must have every year a visit of an inspector, and you have to pay for. For example, for a small farm, you have to pay more or less 400 euros, okay, to keep the labeling for organic productions. Okay. So some people have pastured rabbits and sell the rabbits without labeling, because the consumer have confidence on this farm, like him or like him, for example, more or less the same system but without the certification. Just a eyes click outside the world. In fact, there are many farms that in the world that breed rabbits outdoor with forage-based feeding, like in organic rabbit farming. You can see it here in USA, for example, but also in Ghana, Kenya, Congo, and so on. There are many countries, like in Nepal too, that when the rabbit farming is developing, and it is also a tool for poverty alleviations. Okay, so rabbit farming is very important because you can feed a rabbit with some legumes, some vegetables, and so on. You are not obliged to buy something. Okay. So many countries are looking to the rabbit farming to alleviate poverty and to give jobs to people. And the World Rabbit Science Associations try to contribute to this development of this rabbit farming too, not only the intensive one, but also rabbit farming at proximity of the people in the countryside. Just to finish, actually, is there studies or experiments in organic rabbit farming? In fact, very few. Very few. In the past, you will find some papers, some publications about meat quality, to compare quality of meat of rabbit and organic rabbit farming compared to standard one. For example, you see this unit was developed in Italy, Viterbo, probably in 90, but now I think it's closed. We developed some experiments more than 10 years ago in a unit in the center of France here with an experimental model of cage. And now we are developing our studies with the University of Perpignan. Perpignan is the south of France, and they have a pedagogic farm for the students. Okay, and in this farm, all productions are under organic regulations. Wine with nuts, peaches, and for the animals, the rabbits. So we developed some specific cages, little one, to have some replicates, more replicates in one field, and to obtain more evidence for statistics when we compare a group to another one. In this university, we developed a maternity under a light open funnel to produce, for example, salads and so on. like that. And it is okay for regulation because they have an access. The rabbits have access to outdoor paddock too, but can have some shed under the funnel. So, however, there is few works, but some. And during the 3 last years, we developed some studies with a PhD students, and we have some publications about pasturing rabbits, particularly the grass intake and so on. Grass intake was difficult to measure. Parasitism also, it's a problem for organic farming, could be a problem. These publications were animal and also in congresses. If you want to look it, no problem, I can give some papers and so on. Some perspectives. What will be the organic rabbit farming in the future? First, professional should be more organized than now. So actually, there is some association in France, association of farmers and cooperatives that try to organize more firmly the productions and try to help themselves. The technicity is developing. Technicity because for these farmers, you have to look to the rabbits, you have to look to the field, to the pasture, you have to look to the grain productions, okay? You have to look to the slaughter, you have to look to the market to sell your rabbits. So you have to manage six jobs perhaps, more or less, 5 to 6. So there is many people who are not happy with that. Some others are very happy. Some people want to just breed the rabbits and to sell them. That's for intensive productions. That's a job. It's more simple. Job for these people is more complex, to be clever, and so the technicity is developing at this moment. And in France, INRA, Technical Institute, start to help them and to develop programs and so on. Presently, the market is very favorable because we have a high demand of this type of product of organic rabbit meat. So this is a good moment to develop such productions. So in brief, I can say that this organic rabbit production is an emerging job. Need more technicity to manage this system, and it's developing at this moment. I finish. I'm okay for questions if you want. Some other systems more for pleasure in a garden. Thank you.